Hello everybody and welcome to the first episode finally of the F1 2020 career mode on the channel. I decided we're going to go through with a driver career, not my team career here on the channel. I played my team, but I think it's a great mode, but I just wasn't feeling it in a recording standpoint. I'd rather just do the whole driver career thing personally. So it took me a long time to actually make a decision, but this was the one I would make, and we chose to go to Racing Point here, the pink Mercedes, for our rookie season in F1, and our teammate is going to be Lance Stroll. So it's going to be an all-Canadian lineup here on Racing Point this season here. Now, as you can see, I chose number 24. As always, Jeff Gordon, my favorite race car driver of all time, and obviously he was number 24. So we would get ready right into the action here, as we would get going for Australia, the first race of the season, as I would go through the practice programs and whatnot, and make sure I got the setup down. It took me a little bit, but before we got into qualifying, we had our first interview.
Look, I know we've got a lot to get through in FP1, but Will Buxton's been pushing for a quick interview before you head out on track. Don't worry too much, he's a good lad. He's just over there. These media appearances are important for a few reasons. They'll help build your profile and your brand. Plus, your team will get a real boost to their motivation if they hear you praising them. Will, as promised, sorry to keep you waiting.
Oh, mate, not a problem at all, not a problem.
Look, we've got to be out on track in about 5 minutes for FP1, so we can only spare you a couple of minutes max. Is that going to be enough time?
More than enough. We're already set up. Cool, let's go. So, we're used to seeing rookies in Formula One every year, but this season there's a youngster that's arrived with perhaps a little more interest in them than usual. And that's because while they've been successful at every level of their career, from karts all the way through to Formula 2, they've somehow managed to stay pretty much under the radar. They don't have that luxury anymore, though. They're in Formula 1. Millions of people around the world watching their every move, both on and off the racetrack. So let's take some time to get to know them a little bit better.
So tell us a little about yourself. What's the thing you're most excited about being here in Formula One?
So what's the most thing you're excited about being in F1? I actually went with that answer there, the competition.
After your successful junior career, you must have had a lot of interest. What drew you to sign for your current team?
I mean, the pink Mercedes, man. We're going to be like the second best car. Now, we're actually going to be still quite a ways down the field because of the way it was.
What would you say is going to be the biggest challenge for you this season?
Man, I really don't know. I think getting oriented was the one I would go with here.
Really appreciate your time, but I know you're very keen to get on. Best of luck out there.
Okay, so there was our first interview with Will Buxton now, as this would bring us into qualifying number 1 here for the Australian Grand Prix. I didn't show any practice, there's no point in showing the practice sessions now. As you see myself, so that's the character model I went with. It actually looks kind of young, so rookie. Obviously now, as the only other rookie, I think, in F1 this season is going to be Nicholas Latifi. So we got 3 Canadians now in the field. But we jumped straight into qualifying here. This was now Q2, where I actually was able to advance into Q3. So it was P7, our teammate Lance Stroll. Unfortunately, went P11, so we just barely missed it. And I felt like I pretty much nailed this lap to be able to get into Q3. But we cut straight through to my lap here in Q3. Yes, I do have the racing line on in the corners. It keeps me a lot more comfortable now as we came through this first sector, just trying to get what I could. I made a mistake there, getting way too much curving now as I came through the little right bend. So this definitely I already knew wasn't going to be a great lap as we come through the chicane. I got through there a little rough there, as you could see, some oversteer on the exit. Now as we head down into the penultimate corner, down towards the final corner, got through the left-hander pretty well, and then we get through the final corner pretty good too. Now as we come through, put the DRS back in, and full send down the front straightaway, and we come through across the line P10. So definitely wasn't the most impressive lap, and that's exactly where we would qualify, just behind Esteban Ocon in the Renault now as we get ready to go green in Australia.
No more testing, no more practice. This is the real deal. And it's make or break here at Albert Park, home of the Australian Grand Prix since 1996. And home to round 1 of this year's Formula One World Championship. The Melbourne circuit is certainly one that needs to be taken seriously. Its combination of slippery surfaces and difficult corners make it a tricky track when it comes to overtakes. Drivers find it hard to pass and will need to take full advantage of those DRS zones if they want to have any hope of breaking through. Here we are then, Formula One in 2020. The fight for the World Championship all starts here today. Mercedes on the hunt for a 7th consecutive title. They'll have Ferrari and Red Bull to contend with along the way. Williams struggled to find their feet last year. They'll be hoping for a stronger start this time around. And what I wonder of the Renault-powered cars. Will they be able to step forward? Maybe even onto the podium on a regular basis. Plenty to discuss then with Anthony Davidson. He's out of hibernation too, and alongside me in the commentary box once again.
It's good to be back, Crofty. Let's hope for some good racing today. We can't know at this point how competitive these teams are relative to each other, but hopefully nobody is able to run and hide. We want to see these drivers pushing to the limit all the way to the checkered flag.
It's time to see how our drivers are stacking up after yesterday's exciting qualifying session. Lewis Hamilton lines up on pole position, and it's Valtteri Bottas that completes the front row. Moving on to the rest of the grid, we have Leclerc, Verstappen, Sebastian Vettel and Albon, Ricciardo, Sainz, Ocon and the rookie, Stroll, Norris, Daniel Kvyat and Gasly, Giovinazzi, Raikkonen, Roman Grosjean and Kevin Magnussen, Russell and Nicholas Latifi. Which of these talented drivers will come out on top today?
Alright, there you have it. Now as we're ready to get going for our first race in F1 here with the Racing Point F1 team now, as we get a quick look around now as we're going through the strategy. Pretty straightforward. A one stop is what we're going to go with now, as I was actually taking fuel out of the car. Then I forgot, no, I actually didn't really need to take any out at all, so I'll put it back in. But hopefully we'll have a very solid race here today in the Australian Grand Prix, hoping that we stay out of trouble now as we get ready to start the formation lap. Alright, there we go. We were getting ready now at the end of the formation lap to go green for the first time in our F1 career now. As ERS, this game is so much easier to handle, so that's another thing I'm looking forward to now as we get ready to go green in the Australian Grand Prix now, as Hamilton on pole with his teammate Valtteri Bottas up there on the front row. Now it's 5 red lights, and it is now lights out, and we are underway for the Australian Grand Prix, our first ever F1 race now. As we go down this front straightaway, there you see the Ferrari of Charles Leclerc putting the pressure on Valtteri Bottas as they go down into turns one, but it's Hamilton clear for the lead, and he's going to get out of there as quickly as possible there. Now as I actually lose a few positions, we qualified P10. Well, I lost a position to both my teammate of Lance Stroll and then Lando Norris there in the McLaren, so a bit of a rough start for myself as we drop down to P12. We're a little bit low on fuel. Obviously we're going to have to figure that out later in this race now, as it was Bottas though who had actually gotten back up into P2 after fighting off Charles Leclerc. So we come through to complete this first and opening lap now, putting that ERS into overtake mode as we lunge down into turns 1, just behind Lando Norris. At this point I'm just trying to get into my rhythm and get comfortable with the car in the race pace, but the first few laps weren't the greatest, weren't the prettiest. I lost some ground here as we came through to start lap 3, and now obviously DRS becomes available at this point, so I started using it, and we close in now on lap 4 right on the back of Lando Norris as we go down into the left-hander, but not really any positions being shaken up. It was a very calm start now as we came through on lap 5. DRS for myself and Lando. I could have maybe thought about lunging up the inside of him right there, but I decided to play it pretty calm, being my first race here in F1, just not wanting to do anything stupid now. As we came through though on lap 7 a few laps later, still very calm. Nothing was really happening here in the Grand Prix now, as I was struggling to really get to a point where I could attack Lando in a position that I wanted to, but we get a good run through here now as we go down towards the right-hander. He goes and covers the right side. I lunge up the left side, and we're going to make the pass on Lando Norris and now take over P11 and set our sights on our teammate of Lance Stroll. Now let's make sure that Lando's not going to be able to attack me down into the chicane. I would defend him off pretty well. We came through now on lap 9 of the race, and at this point it was actually time to come in and make a pit stop. So I would come in here. Lance stays out another probably lap or two. Obviously he was able to start the race on fresh tires where I was not now, so we come into the pit lane here on lap 9 of 29, and this set of tires that we're going to take is going to take us right to the end of this race now, as I wore that left rear out pretty good. Now, as you see, a McLaren of Carlos Sainz, I believe that was, and then the Renault of, I believe that was Ocon, exiting there in front of us. Yeah, there. Oh no, it's Sainz and Ricardo, sorry. So Ocon is still on the track now as we get ready to come back out. There's a 3-second pit stop now as we're going to come back on track just in front of a fellow Canadian rookie, Nicholas Latifi here, as we go down into turns 1. So now he might be able to put the pressure on myself as we exit the corner. Sure enough, he's probably going to have DRS, but we also have DRS. Maybe he does not have DRS, but he still has that speed to get alongside myself as we go down towards the right corner now, and we're actually going to be able to defend Latifi off without a single problem. So P18 at this point now as we go down towards that right bend, but then we come through on the next lap, passing the line. You see these drivers that now come into the pit lane. Lando Norris comes into the pit lane, now exiting. Obviously, I was able to get in front of him without a problem, so we were in good shape there now as we were trying to close in on the Renault in front of us of Esteban Ocon, who just came out of the pit lane as well. My teammate, though, of Lance Stroll had actually had an atrocious pit stop. He was way behind us. He came in, obviously, in front of us, came out way behind us. So he was no longer even in the picture for this battle here, as we were now closing in on the back of Esteban Ocon here. We're sure enough on lap 14, close to the halfway point of this race. We get a big run on him, and I send it up the left-hand side here, around the outside on Ocon here as we go down into the left corner, and we clear Ocon, and now we move up into the points here of P10 now. So definitely picking up a lot more pace on this medium tire. I felt now we're actually up into P9, I should say. So we're already in P10, but we still made the pass on Ocon. Now as came through though on lap 17, we had climbed up into P8 just because of the whole pit cycle thing. Now as we come through, trying to run down now Daniel Ricciardo at this point, but then Carlos Sainz, he had dropped down into the 7th position. There is Lewis Hamilton actually out of the Grand Prix. At this point, he pulls over to the side of the track. He was leading the race at the start, and obviously a big issue for him. I was coming to the pit lane when this happened. I decide to make a strategy call. We come into the pit lane, and we're going to throw the soft tire on the car. Sorry, the medium tire. I keep getting my tires mixed up. The white tire is hard tire. Yellow tire is the medium tire. So we put the medium tire on the car, and we came in, P8, and we dropped down to P12, maybe P13 there, as Daniel Kvyat would go by there. You see Lewis Hamilton, unfortunately, pulled over to the right side of the track, but we would cycle out in P12 because of Hamilton being out of the race. So we get right back into the restart here behind Daniel Kvyat. This would leave us 9 laps of racing to go once we hit the line, and I felt like we have a very large advantage now. No one in front of us came into the pit lane on these safety cars, so we have the tire advantage versus those slower, hard tires. So on the same lap now, closing in on the back of Kvyat, we have a caution though. Right in front of us is for Lando Norris, who makes contact with Sebastian Vettel. He is out of the race as well. He's pulling off now as he's trying to regain speed, but clearly a significant issue, and that would be the end of Lando Norris's day. And Sebastian Vettel got a piece of that now, as Vettel had to actually seem to be off the pace at this point in the Grand Prix. Now, as we would get a virtual safety car for that incident with Lando Norris, so we would have to obviously settle back down and get ready to go green once again. Sure enough, out of the final corner here on lap 21, the virtual safety car would end. We actually got a decent run here on the back of Daniel Kvyat. Immediately, he pulls to the right, being very defensive here. As we go down into turns 1, we lunge it up the inside. Unfortunately, doesn't work, and that was the outside now, I should say. Now as we would get back up his right-hand side here now on the straightaway, right behind us, we got our teammate of Lance Stroll, who thankfully decides to not make a move, as I did put the ERS into overtake at this point, and we would complete the pass now on Daniel Kvyat. So there's one spot down, and now we have to run down Kimi Räikkönen here and try to get back up into the 9th position here. And sure enough, we would run down Räikkönen now on lap 23, so the DRS was once again enabled at this point, as we're right on the back of Räikkönen here in the same spot where we were able to make the pass on Daniel Kvyat. Räikkönen going very defensive on the right-hand side, but I'm still going to stick it up the inside anyways here. As we go down into the corner, we send it in pretty deep, but make it happen and take over P9 now, as we would try to run down Sebastian Vettel, Esteban Ocon in this final stint of the race. Now, as Vettel, like I said, he was definitely off the pace a little bit, and he was not able to pass Esteban Ocon to save his life. I came through on lap 25, set a personal fastest lap of the race at this point now, here with just 5 laps to go in the Australian Grand Prix. And you can see the live timer in the top left. We were closing in quickly on the back of Vettel and Ocon, and just the cars up ahead. This tire advantage was paying off massively now, as we got the DRS here, and we come to just 3 laps to go, approaching 2 to go. Now right on that gearbox of of the Ferrari driver of Sebastian Vettel, who, by the way, is my favorite driver in F1. So we come through to just 2 to go, like I said, down into the right-hander, and here's our chance now. We get up the right-hand side, kind of catch Vettel off guard, and we get past him and take over P8 there. A bit of an aggressive move, but it worked out now as I would try to set my sights on the back of Esteban Ocon. Sure enough here, now on the final lap down into turns 1, right on the back of Esteban Ocon, as we're now in position to potentially get a P7 finish. Ocon and myself both have DRS now as he's going defensive. I'm going to lunge it up the left-hand side here into the right-hander, and we're going to make it work once again. No contact made, and we will take over P7 on the final lap here in the Australian Grand Prix. We come through the final chicane, wheeling the car there, doing everything I could to run down Carlos Sainz, but it just wasn't going to happen at this point as we go into this final sector. But it's Valtteri Bottas who would acclaim the lead after Lewis Hamilton's issues there earlier in the race, which took him out of the Australian Grand Prix. So now as we go down into the penultimate corner, Valtteri Bottas has exited the final corner. He is going to come through to win the first race of the season here in the Australian Grand Prix. And there you see second and third, a Red Bull. Charles Leclerc, I believe that was Verstappen there joining him in P2 as we come through, though, to cross the line to finish P7 here in the Australian Grand Prix. Definitely can't complain about that finish at all. Very happy with that one now. As driver of the day actually went to Kimi Räikkönen there in the Alfa Romeo, as we obviously passed him in our work up back through the field here now as we get ready to celebrate here with the winners of the Australian Grand Prix. Mercedes on top there, as you see Valtteri Bottas coming out to celebrate the race victory now, as he always seems to start off the season so well and then he just fades now as he won the first race of the season in real life this year, and then obviously Lewis Hamilton has since taken over. But now you see the podium celebration. So there we got Valtteri Bottas, we got Max Verstappen on the left, and then Charles Leclerc on the right now, as obviously a little bit different seeing Ferrari up there now, as obviously it's not very accurate to how they are really performing this season in real life now, as Racing Point should be way further up the grid as well, you would think now, there as they spray the champagne. But a good result for us here in the Racing Point. Wasn't the most exciting race. We did have that moment with Lewis Hamilton as well as Lando Norris getting together with Sebastian Vettel, but obviously Lando at that point had already had an issue. But Lance Stroll, our teammate, finishes in P12. Definitely P7 I think was better than what we would have gotten without the safety car and whatnot. I think we would have probably been a 9th or 10th place car if that safety car didn't happen and we didn't get a chance to take those tires. But Daniel Ricciardo with a solid 5th place finish. Carlos Sainz there in P6 now, as you see Racing Point P6 in the constructors, and obviously we're P7 in the drivers standing. So definitely can't complain about that solid performance here today in the Australian Grand Prix. And obviously next up we got the Bahrain Grand Prix, and that's a track that I've always struggled at quite a bit in just my F1 career, from spanning back to like F1 2015. So definitely going to have some work to do, but I would also get some upgrades going here that hopefully we'll have boost us up past Renault and then get us even closer to McLaren. Obviously the top three of Mercedes, Red Bull, and Ferrari are quite a ways out there. As you see, this whole contract thing, this is brand new with the driver career this year, so definitely cool to see. We got perks and whatnot, and we're obviously use those in the future, but not right now. There's like social media team, power mapping, and whatnot. But yeah, that will do it though for this episode, the first episode of the F1 2020 driver career mode now. And as always, if you guys enjoyed, you know what to do. So I will see you guys though in the next one when we go racing here at the Bahrain Grand Prix. Hopefully we can have a strong run here in the Racing Point. Thank you for watching, everybody, and have yourselves a great day.